I was going to put a joke about being dead, and then put that scene from Independence Day before segueing into how ER made that same joke, and then segue into Korra. You know, it sounded a lot less stupid in my head, but so did spirit bending, which I mistakenly used in place of energy bending. So for those of you who are just that much of a stickler for correct Avatar terminology, I'm sorry, but I can't stand that third syllable. I probably should have shortened it even further to chi bending. It just rolls off the tongue much easier when there aren't so many syllables. But enough about that, let's talk about Korra. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, I really don't like The Legend of Korra. I hate just about anything related to the Avatar series now. Save for the original show, of course. I don't even like the comics. It's truly amazing how quickly something that was so beloved by fans and valued by its writers is so quickly bastardized and turned into something that barely resembles the original material while parading around its corpse like it's some kind of twisted costume. Wonder where we've heard that before. Although Season 1 was bad, the betrayal of the original series had only begun. Season 2 helped with that, what with how it tried to portray Aang as though he was a parent who held favorites amongst his children.
He always had time for you, though. His precious little airbender.
Tenzin, your problem is you're exactly like Dad.
Everyone, even the Fire Lord and the Fire Nation, have to be treated like they're worth giving a chance. It's easy to do nothing, but it's hard to forgive. This isn't about finding a teacher. This is about finding my friend. Now, check this out.
He was so focused on saving the world.
You need to shut the fuck.
But it wasn't until the two-part origin beginnings that really began to retcon so much of the original lore out of existence. So let's do a rewrite, because I have no idea what I want my channel to be. Honestly, I've wanted to do a rewrite of Legend of Korra for a while. And I don't think that because I'm not the only one to try this is any indication of unoriginality either. Rewrite videos are really cool, and I wish there were more of them. Plus, they fly in the face of the "let's see you do better" argument, and shows just how little weight it holds in a debate. In this rewrite, I'm gonna talk about what I think didn't work about the original, how it goes against its source material, and why I believe my changes would fix that. Additionally, many of the changes I make are based heavily on the criticism I share with the YouTuber ER. So to keep from sounding redundant, I recommend you check out his 4-part series, Reniggings, to better understand the changes I'm making. Now, as a bit of a disclaimer, this is hardly what I would call fully edited and final, and more so what I would call a work in progress that I have made in my spare time. I'm more curious as to how I can go about improving it rather than showing off just how professional a writer I am, because I'm not. Also, while I will be revising what was in Beginnings, I don't intend to match the continuity with any other seasons of The Legend of Korra. Like I said, if given the option, I'd rewrite the entire series, so if anything, I would rewrite The Legend of Korra to match this new origin. I'm only interested in maintaining consistency with The Last Airbender, which, as far as I'm concerned, was the last good thing to come out of this whole franchise. And on a final note, if I was given the option to rewrite the entirety of Korra, I wouldn't have the origin be introduced in an episode or two. Rather, I would hint at the origin, but mostly leave its exact events a bit of a mystery. Maintaining the mysticism of the Avatar is a crucial part to their character, but just because the viewers won't see the origin doesn't mean that it shouldn't be written for future reference. Nor does it mean that the viewer can't accurately guess the events based on what you do show them. So in the beginning there existed only two planes, the spiritual and physical worlds, and they could not be more different from one another. While the spirit world was one thriving and blooming with life, the physical world was shrouded in darkness. It was a desolate wasteland where only the most resilient of creatures could survive, and from that darkness came humanity, a seemingly small and weak race of creatures that made up for their lacking physical strength with their prowess and innate ability to bend the spiritual forces around them. It was only through that ability that they were able to survive in such a harsh environment, and so here is where we set our stage. Now, as far as The Last Airbender tells us, there's very little we actually know about the era of the first Avatar, or any Avatar before Yang Chen for that matter. The most that we know is that
in the era before the Avatar, we bent not the elements, but the energy within our senses.
This line heavily implies that bending wasn't a thing until around the time the Avatar came to be, or at least not the kind of bending we're familiar with. One thing that I wish Korra did more of was elaborate on what exactly spirit bending was. It was a ludicrous deus ex machina introduced at the literal last minute of the series, and remained an unexplained mystery even to this day. The way the original series describes it makes it seem like it was a fifth form of bending used before the elements were bendable. But The Legend of Korra did very little to elaborate on that, and just brushed it off as something that only the Avatar could do without much explanation beyond that. They didn't even really explain why lion turtles could do it either. If only the Avatar has this kind of aptitude, why is it the lion turtles can do it as well? This was disappointing not only because of the lack of proper explanation we get, but it doesn't redeem the mistake The Last Airbender made during its finale, which The Legend of Korra had the opportunity to do, but didn't. So let's explore what exactly spirit bending is, or could have been. The most we see in either of the two shows is that it has the capacity to remove or bestow bending unto others. But nothing else beyond that. Clearly there must be more to it than that, however. What's the point of giving or removing the ability to bend the elements if at the time they
bend not the elements?
It just seems kinda useless if that's the case. If you've ever played the Monk in 5th edition D&D, it's like that. It's a martial art that enhances the body in many different ways depending on how it's used. And it's not that much of a stretch that something like this could have existed if you look at bending as it is now, just as the natural progression of what used to be spirit bending. But I'll talk about that later. The elemental bending styles were already based on martial arts styles, but with what was basically magic. So this really isn't that much of a jump up from that. Spirit bending was basically mandatory for humans to survive. Lion turtles often gave humans shelter and taught them the ways of spirit bending, which they also had the aptitude for. But ultimately, death awaited those who couldn't adapt to the wastelands. There was really only one hope for them, one dream in which all humans shared, to reach the spirit world. They desired this more than anything else, and it was practically the only reason to live at all. But the spirits weren't having none of that. Humans were like insects to them. They would never allow them in their homes so long as they could help it. Though not only because humans were viewed as mere vermin. Being one of the few creatures with the capacity to bend another spirit, the spirits also feared that if they gave the humans any ground in their world, as soon as their greed would grow, the spirits would be unable to stop them. This is because spirit bending is the only way to kill a spirit. No other physical creature can do it. This is the main reason why I wanted to set the beginning of this origin in an era before the Earth existed, because it gave humans a desire to reach the spirit world, which in turn causes the spirits to view them with disdain, and the humans resent them vice versa, which will set up events yet to come. The spirit world was a place that could be reached, but not through physical means. Very few humans had the aptitude to travel there, and thus would not have the numbers to keep from being expelled entirely, and that was the best case scenario. However, the resentment towards humans was not a sentiment shared by all spirits, but the reason why their presence would not be tolerated in their world was only because the ruler of the spirit world made it law, and here is where we introduce Vaatu and Raava. Let's get something quite clear. We already have a pair of yin-yang spirits, that being the spirits of the moon and the ocean. We don't need another one. Besides, I have a better idea for Raava and Vaatu. If we're going to stick with the original idea that the Avatar is the incarnation of the spirit of the earth, then Raava is the spirit of the earth. So, who is Vaatu? Well, Vaatu is the ruler of the spirit world, and Raava is his daughter. They are the spirits of heaven and earth. This still maintains that level of opposing forces, while remaining separate from Twee and La. It also just creates a much more interesting relationship between the two that has the potential for more and better drama down the line. I was also initially going to rename them to match their new titles, not like their names matched their original titles, but I decided to keep the names Raava and Vaatu, not only to keep from confusing you guys, but also because I found a way to make it work. Also, they wouldn't be carpets. I don't know what they would be exactly. Maybe Raava would have a more humanoid shape to reflect her sympathy towards humans, and Vaatu could be more abstract, being the king of a metaphysical plane, and to reflect the opposite of his daughter, but they definitely shouldn't be carpets. And while they can be similar, even in the original, it should have been important to highlight their differences more than their similarities. These two are supposed to be opposing forces, and therefore opposite of one another. So even at the very least, they can't both be carpets. Unlike how the two are portrayed in Korra, Raava and Vaatu are not enemies. Not necessarily, anyways. They're family. though it's not without its issues. Raava is still young and her father views her as naive because of that. She's kind and wants to see the good in everyone, and her father sees these traits as weaknesses. Despite this though, he does love her. He's only harsh on her because he wants her to become strong like he is one day. And though her strength lies in her wisdom, Vaatu doesn't see this. Not yet anyways. Because of her compassion, Raava has always been captivated by humans and sympathized with their struggles. This isn't the only spirit to think this, but Vaatu would never allow them any place in the spirit world. Even still, she wanted to help them, so she continued to observe the humans and their lion turtles until she came to a conclusion. She would create a garden in the physical world in which the humans could live. But this was a feat easier said than done, even for a spirit like her. And it would have to be done in secret if Vaatu wasn't to get in the way. Though the garden could eventually be completed, it wouldn't last forever, not without a strong and unwavering foundation, the likes of which none of the spirits could create. So, Raava had no choice. She became the Earth. Though it was nothing close to the beauty of the spirit world, it might as well have been paradise to the humans. They would scarcely remember the savior that brought them the Earth, but the lion turtles would always remember. They would remain the guardians of humans for many generations to come. And so, for the humans and all inhabitants of the Earth, life was good. But in time, Vaatu began to take notice of Raava's absence. So when he traveled to the physical world to look for her and saw the Earth, he feared that the humans must have done something with her for their own selfish gain. Quick to dismiss the humans as untrustworthy liars, he turned to the other spirits in his world and told them what the humans had done with his daughter. As though their disdain for humans wasn't enough, the spirits were now outraged and decided that humans could not be allowed quarter in either world. They were too powerful and had to be eradicated, or at least that's what they thought. As though the battle being waged wasn't enough, she couldn't speak to her father where she was and tell him she was safe. But she couldn't leave either, or the world would quickly crumble to pieces. And if the spirits didn't destroy humanity, then humanity would destroy her fellow spirits. As you can imagine, neither of these outcomes were preferable. So she would do what no spirit would dare attempt. She would create her incarnation in mortal form to act on her behalf. And this avatar would be the bridge between her world and the humans. Now there's a lot more to go over beyond that, but let's talk about the first avatar. First of all, Juan is not the first avatar in my version. In fact, he's the second. I always kind of felt as though the choice for the first avatar was made with little thought as to which element would be the first. Why fire exactly? It doesn't feel like it was chosen for any particular reason. I suppose you could say that fire is the closest of the elements to light, which Raava is the spirit of, but that feels less like an artistic decision and more like an unintentional level of self-awareness. The first avatar could have been from any of the lion turtles, not just the one of fire. The fact that the first avatar was a firebender means nothing. So, let's change that. Seeing as Raava is the spirit of the earth, the first avatar was not a firebender, but an earthbender named Lee. Earth is the element Raava is most familiar with, so her first incarnation couldn't have possibly been any other element. But before I start talking about Lee, let's talk about bending. Another thing I want to make clear, bending is not something that is bestowed by a lion turtle unto another. Much like spirit bending, it relies on chi within an individual and was created as a sub-style of spirit bending that utilizes different and easier concepts to perform. They were learned by mimicking the creatures that first learned to bend the elements, the dragons, the badger moles, etc. And while I'm on the subject of bending, let's also talk about bending in the spirit world. Legend of Korra seems to give the impression that the reason you can't bend in the spirit world is because you need your physical body to be there to do it. But if you did have your physical body there, then you would be able to bend the elements. For as straightforward as this logic seemed to be in Korra, it kinda goes against the whole point of the Avatar. The Avatar is the incarnation of the spirit of the earth, and that's the reason they're the only one who can bend all four elements. But the elements of the spirit world aren't of the earth, so why should the Avatar be able to bend them? But because bending is ultimately something that isn't exclusive to the Avatar, you would also have to extend that logic to all other benders. Though, I suppose the idea that one can't bend without their body is still a rule that would need to be maintained, given that you can't bend as a spirit at all. I'm not even sure why I'm going over this, since I'm not even sure I'll include portals in my rewrite, so this kind of thing probably won't even come up. Now let's talk about Lee. Lee was the son of two powerful earthbenders. I sort of want to make him the son of Oma and Shu. I don't necessarily see anything wrong with that, but I'm open to hearing any contradictions that might create in the lore. Oma and Shu were said to be the first human earthbenders, so I find it kind of fitting that their son is the first earthbending avatar. Lee could even play a part in why Oma didn't destroy the two cities and instead united them in the formation of Omashu. It just seems fitting given that he's the avatar. You know, bridge and all that. But this isn't an important event of Lee's life. Truth be told, there's very little about Lee's life that could be considered of note, and there's a reason for that which I'll get to in a bit. Lee stayed in Omashu for much of his life, defending it from spirits and teaching others to use earthbending like his parents did. But one day, Raava spoke to Lee in a dream, told him about the struggles other humans faced, and in response, Lee left his city to seek out Vaatu. Through Lee, Raava was able to learn much about the people of the land, and in time met other earthbenders that learned from the badger moles, and together fought off many other malicious spirits. In time, he eventually came face to face with Vaatu, and Lee tried to explain that his daughter was alive. But Vaatu wouldn't listen to an insect like Lee, and this is why I decided to keep their names Raava and Vaatu. Sound and silence. Raava would speak to her father, if not to try to tell him to give humans a chance, then to tell him that she is alive. But Vaatu would never listen to the words of a human. And so, Raava's voice would be nothing more than silence to him. I have no idea why they chose the names Sound and Silence for the original, when the only connection is that the two are opposing forces, but nothing about their character or their dynamic has anything to do with the meanings of their names. Though Lee had failed to tell Vaatu the true fate of his daughter, humanity finally had a chance to defend themselves. But the spirits would not let up. Though earthbending was a powerful tool in battle, it acted as little more than a shield that simply held the enemy at bay, but couldn't repel the spirits entirely. The lion turtles, who had remained the trusted guardians of humanity, played a big role in defending them even before earthbending had been discovered. Even still, Raava learned the hard way that Earth would not be enough to win what would be the greatest war ever fought. And so, Lee died in battle defending his people. Yes, you heard me right. The first avatar dies before he could learn more than one element. Remember that speech Iroh gave Zuko before he taught him how to redirect lightning? Though the speech was primarily focused towards the nations themselves, those commonalities could also be compared to the benders of those particular elements, and even the nature of the martial art they perform in order to bend. And in that regard, those same emotions reflect in Aang's training when learning those elements as well. It felt like one of the many different reasons why the Avatar was able to bend all the elements was being unraveled, because the Avatar has lived the lives of those people who exhibited the traits of all four bending types. Like I said, Earth is the element Raava is most familiar with, and the Avatar is the means by which she can connect herself with humanity. She learns from them just as much as they learn from her, if not more so the former. Though I'm sure that's not the only reason, if that interpretation is even correct. It's just one thing that I thought was interesting to note. Remember, the Avatar doesn't start off with all the elements. They learn the elements from others. Although, the biggest reason why the Avatar can bend the elements is because they are the incarnation of the spirit of the earth. Ultimately, Raava would have had to have interacted with humans, lived their lives at some point, and learn how to be a great firebender, a great earthbender, etc., given that the Avatar doesn't know all these things naturally. It also just feels much more natural given the way the Avatar state works. The Avatar can access a wealth of knowledge and experience from all of their past lives, so it seems in line that their ability to bend the elements would also relate to that fact, even if only a little bit. So, with that in mind, we still have 3 more Avatars to go after Lee before we get a complete Avatar. My choices for this also have a bit more to do with why the order is the way it is, but let's leave a pen in that for now until after the Tale of the 4 Avatars. Hey guys, I'd appreciate it if you stick around for a bit, although if this video is already a month old, then that's fine, you can leave. I didn't originally plan on making this video a 2-parter. Midterms have been hell this semester, and what's worse, at the time of this recording, both my phone and my car are broken beyond repair, and I have to get new ones. So those 3 things have affected a lot of other things, not the least of which has been my ability to work on this video. Even though I still want to take it slow with uploads so I can focus on my work, I really didn't think it right to make you guys wait more than a month for another video. You guys have been so helpful these past few weeks. I especially want to give a shout out to Mindspatch and Traj, however you pronounce this username. Thank you so much for posting my videos on a Discord far, far away. You have no idea how much it's helped in the past few weeks. I mean, I got more than 13 subscribers just in the past 3 weeks. I'm getting close to doubling my subscriber count since I started uploading again. That's insane! And please don't think that just because you don't share my videos that you aren't helping. The fact that you've made it through this video is help enough. Now, I'm gonna try to finish up part 2, Tale of the Four Avatars, sometime within the next few weeks. Some of the stuff in this video might not make sense without the full context of part 2, but I still welcome any criticism that helps me improve, either as a writer or as a channel. So, with all that said guys, have an excellent day and stay platinum!